All right, so welcome to Introduction to LEED for Homes and how to use it now. This course is approved for 1 hour in continuing education units, GBCI, AIA HSW, AIBD, NARI Green, Certified Green Professionals, and also is approved for 1 LEED for Homes specific CEU. Today I'll be both your presenter, host, and moderator. My name is Brett Little, and I am the Executive Director here at the Green Home Institute. Our organization is a nonprofit headquartered in Grand Rapids, Michigan, with a mission to empower people to make healthier and more sustainable choices in the renovation and construction of the places we live. I have to do a huge thanks to our Platinum Plus sponsorship from Anderson Windows. Very thankful for them and their support of our organization, as well as our other many sponsors, Panasonic Cake Systems, Certainteed Air Renew, who makes a drywall eating, formaldehyde eating drywall substrate, check them out, and then Warmboard for unique non-ducted HVAC systems for heating and cooling. Do you support greener homes? Become a member today. Help keep these webinars going. Get discounts on your LEED for Homes certification projects, single family and multifamily, as well as other discounts on education. Also, you can become a certified green home professional, and that's a unique program that we are launching that you can check out on our website under the Learn section. All right, so introduction here, we're going to cover the LEED program, Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, a program that was started by the United States Green Building Council in the late 90s with a very big focus on the commercial sector, but now, as of 2005, was launched as a pilot program in 2005 for the single-family, multifamily, mixed-use, mid-rise residential sector, is now a full-blown, full-fledged residential program. Our goals today is to describe how LEED for Homes can be applied to various residential building types, define the rating system credit categories, how to help you communicate how LEED works with your stakeholders, and then of course know where to get more additional support resources to move forward with education or project. One thing to mention is that the current version of LEED still is what we call 2008. On the commercial side, they call it 2009. But version 4 is available as a pilot, and we do have some version 4 projects moving forward. So when you see this little logo pop up, I will be referencing some of the really big changes that you're going to see in the new V4. And 2008 is going to sunset, from my understanding, on October 31st, 2016, and then V4 at that point will be the only program you can use. So you'll have to get your projects registered prior to that time if you're concerned about the new rating system. So here, LEED for Homes, really big, and a shout out to Ohio, where we do a lot of work, as well as New York, for being number 6 and number 3 last year in LEED for Homes. Over 80,000 certified residential units, and over 150,000 certified LEED residential under both NC and homes under the new construction program. And that's across the globe, clearly with the U.S. being number 1, but interestingly enough, we're seeing more and more projects spring up in the home sector. So the LEED in general is, pretty global, but the home sector is now just starting to grow across the globe. So one of the biggest values to LEED is the value of the third-party certification. So having an independent, verified building that has been tested and inspected, audited, and documented outside of the code official is very important and one of the biggest values to the residential LEED program. Another big value is the marketing ability, using it as a tool to market what you do, your design, your construction, as a green building firm. Unfortunately, we see all sorts of greenwashing out there, and so LEED is a way to say, hey, this is what's important to us, designing in a more energy efficient and healthier way, and being able to show that off. Of course, other benefits, improved indoor air quality beyond code-built homes, more comfortable units and homes, having more durability, less maintenance. People who are more interested in being environmentally responsible and socially conscious can use LEED to do that, in whether they build a new home or want to rent a multifamily building somewhere. Definitely increased energy efficiency over code, and also all sorts of other benefits. There's insurance organizations that give out discounts for having LEED or green rated homes. We've been seeing increased home value, less time on the market for certified projects, faster uptick in rental units, grants being given, volunteers coming out for the affordable housing sector who use LEED as one of their components of their green building rating systems and commit to LEED. So all sorts of benefits, and so we definitely encourage builders, designers, architects, developers, affordable housing agencies to make a full or partial commitment to this program and get several other benefits besides just following the criteria. Today's LEED homes come in many shapes, sizes, locations, all over the place on the Lake Michigan, on the coast, helping preserve and protect the water. Single-family attached units in downtown Ann Arbor, rebuilt lots with Habitat for Humanity. We see urban rehab projects in Indianapolis and multifamily mixed-use mid-rise, even up to 8-story high-rise in Ohio and Indianapolis. Basically, this program can apply to many different building types. We're even seeing up to 12-story mixed-use mid-rise projects being applicable to the program. Now, one of the things you have to know is that the building for large-scale projects has to be at least 80% residential. When you get into the mid-rise 4 to 6-story, you can kind of have a gray area between 40 and 60% residential commercial space if you do have a commercial portion of the building. Low-rise is always defined as 3 stories and under, but if you have a 4 or 5-story building that has decentralized heating and cooling systems and decentralized water heating systems, you actually could run it under the low-rise program, which does have some inherent benefits and cost reductions as far as energy modeling goes. We also see neighborhoods, tract homes being built to full LEED certification, which is a little bit different than LEED ND. And then a lot of questions about existing homes. And as you know, existing homes are a huge area. We need to make improvements to our millions of existing homes that are wasting energy and poisoning their occupants. But it does require a full gut rehab, and so it's very important that the energy rater can see an exposed thermal envelope either on the interior or exterior to make sure it was done right. And they also have to see behind the shower and tub surround to make sure that there's a non-paper faced drywall back there that won't mold. So a lot of times we get a lot of calls about people who want to do additions or remodels or weatherization projects, and unfortunately you really got to go the whole length and almost gut the whole home out. It is subjective, and you can talk to your rater about it, but it just does not work for these types of projects. Now, the LEED program can guide these projects, but certifying these types of projects just isn't really meant, for the LEED for homes rating system as it stands. If you want to do a remodel or addition, the Green Star Homes certification is the program that you want to check out, and you can check that out on our website. So LEED, leadership in energy and environmental design. What LEED gives you is basically an ingredients label looking at some different categories of sustainability and how well it's performing. Similar to the way one would look at their food label before they bought their food, people are going to be looking at building labels before they purchase their building or their home. So LEED for Homes weights their credits in different categories: energy and atmosphere, materials and resources, indoor environmental quality, awareness and education, innovation and design, location and linkages, sustainable sites, and water efficiency. There's more opportunity and requirements in energy and atmosphere because one of the main tasks of the USGBC is to stifle climate change, and so we do want to reduce energy, but while we're doing that, we definitely want to have a durable building that's using appropriate resources and has appropriate indoor air quality, which are some of the big sections of the LEED program. So the way LEED works on the home size is it uses a home size adjuster. So basically what it means is under the 2008 version, if you have a single family home or even a multifamily building, which gives you a little more points, you have a ratio of less bedrooms and more square footage is going to penalize you and make it harder to get to the higher levels of LEED, platinum, gold, whereas if you do what we call right size design and do more bedrooms for less square footage, conditioned square footage, you'll be rewarded more points and it'll be easier to score in these. So that, that just means you have a building that ideally has more people in it, so less environmental impact per person, less energy, less water, less materials being used is the way that 2008 currently works. But V4 will be a little bit different, and they've gotten rid of all of your home size adjuster points in all of the categories except for energy. So now basically what they're saying is your indoor air quality, your water conservation, your materials are no longer impacted directly in your points by your home size. And instead what they're using is the Energy Star reference home for low-rise projects, where you will have to hit certain energy thresholds, again based on your home size adjuster of bedrooms compared to square footage, compared to the the reference home, and you can check that out in the V4 program. So the very first credit category is called Innovative in Design Process. This is really where you want to start. This is where you are working with your team, you're getting your team together, you're getting your consultants, you're getting the HVAC, you're getting the subs in the room, electrical, landscape architect, you're getting your green rater and your energy rater in the room and your architect, and you're coming together and saying, how can we design the best project and how do each of us fit in to these roles and make sure we know what each other's doing. We see all sorts of, this seems very basic, but we see all sorts of building failures, even on small gut rehab projects where people just simply failed to communicate with each other at the beginning on who was doing what, and all sorts of costs get added in at that point. So you're really looking at putting a goal together, what level of certification do you want to hit, and how to get there. This is a good time where you might want to use a credentialed AP Homes consultant or become one yourself. To get the AP Homes credential, you first have to go through the LEED Green Associates training, which is very heavily focused on commercial. So unless you're in multifamily development or mixed use, if you're just doing single family, it may be difficult to get through the LEED Green Associates, but once you get through it, you'll get to the AP Homes course, and at that point, you focus exactly on the residential rating system. And so you have to take those courses, you can study for those, we have some materials for them, but you have to sign up for those through the USGBC website, and then you take them at a local testing center that's proctored. And then also if you wanted to go even further, you could become a LEED Green Home Rater. We're always looking for more raters across the country and the globe to do the actual third-party inspections and testing of homes. So anyway, as we're discussing this, having that team put together, and then here is where you're going to want to access the checklist. We provide the resource to access that checklist on our website. USGBC has it as well. This is really the meat and bones of guiding you to design your project, and you can use this as a guidance tool whether you use LEED or not. It has all of the basic green building principles built right into the checklist, but this is something you'll go through with your team during the early design phase or redesign phase for a rehab, using this tool to help see what points you're going to get and what things are important for a sustainable design building. At that point, you're also going to be considering costs, and some of the things that you might think about that are really simple is building orientation. Lots of missed opportunities on homes that you see go up that are designed poorly, and they're getting overheated by the sun or not taking advantage of free solar gain. And so designing your building to east-west access, what they're calling zero energy ready homes that are designed oriented towards the sun so that you can slap on, or your homeowner or customer can slap on solar the second they feel it's affordable. all sorts of things that you want to consider using the LEED program that have proper design, even from choosing your lot to how big your house is going to be. All of those questions can get answered with your team in the checklist. And then, of course, green features that are going to reduce cost immediately. Like construction waste, that's usually an easy one. Lots of savings there. And then some measures that are going to have a big impact in the upfront, and trying to figure out ways how to finance and fund that through property assessed clean energy or on-bill financing or some kind of green mortgage program. However you do it, trying to finance those upfront initial investments to get that immediate payback and have a building that's going to save the user a lot more cost and energy and water and even durability is important during this design phase. Can't stress it enough that you want to focus on all of these things. Another thing that you're going to be doing is evaluating potential durability pitfalls of where you're at. So you're going to be looking at moisture and rainfall. You're going to be looking at climate. You're going to be looking at potential for radon, which is the second cause of lung cancer. You're going to be looking at pests and termites and storms. And so there's a whole durability guidance management checklist within the LEED for Homes rating system that is going to challenge you to think about where you're building and how you're going to mitigate those issues like hurricanes or tornadoes or floods in your building design. And so that's required to think through that with your team and with your rater. And one interesting thing now is they have an innovation credit for climate resiliency. As you know, as we progress here with carbon parts per million in the air, we're going to see frequent weather shifts and heating and cooling and storm and rainfall. And so there's going to be some extra points in the LEED rating system if you can address and make your building even more resilient to the local conditions that are being predicted. Like in Grand Rapids, where I'm at, we're predicting more rainfall during the winter and less in the summer. And of course, hotter summers and even colder winters. So how do we design those issues out as well? If you want to use the Energy Star version 3 program, currently we're in version 2, but if you use version 3, not only can you pick up an extra ID credit, but you eliminate all of the extra paperwork I just talked about with before in the last slide, and you can do all of your durability planning using the Energy Star program, which has got a lot more streamlined guidance and gives you a simple way to design a home that reduce a lot of durability failures. So the next credit in the program is the energy and atmosphere section, and so we're looking at two different pathways in this section. There's the performance pathway using energy modeling, and there's the prescriptive pathway, which has you go through the checklist and look at all these areas 2 through 11 in energy efficiency and decide which is best for your program based on your client's energy targets and goals. So basically, LEED is built on the HERS index, Home Energy Rating Score System index. It's I'll cover it here in a second, and you have to at least get a 70 or less in the program to have a baseline LEED home, and then you have to use Energy Star version 2. If you're doing a mid-rise multifamily project, you're going to be using ASHRAE 90.1 2007, and you have to get 15% above that to start scoring your points in the LEED rating system, for those of you who are familiar with that tool. So the HERS index rating is basically a miles per gallon for homes tool. The reference home is a 100 2006 IECC built to code. Every percent lower than 100 down to 0 is a 1% reduction in predicted energy usage. The average LEED home we're seeing is getting a 65, but we're working with some folks that are now getting them down to 55 and even lower. Once you get down to 35, you're sort of in that zero energy category where you can't do much more than start adding more renewable energy in the rating tool. The HERS index has a lot of unique marketing too with homeowners to help them understand what their energy costs are going to be, and it's now being used on nearly a third of all new construction. So we're anticipating in the future that every home is going to have an NPG rating, single family and multifamily, and for the new construction world, it's going to be the HERS index. So on top of the HERS index, you have Energy Star, and Energy Star certifies homes. They don't just certify commercial building energy usage or light bulbs. They actually certify homes. And the biggest thing for Energy Star is your rater is going to be using the thermal bypass checklist. And all they're trying to verify here is that the building is tight and air is not leaking out of it. That's the biggest thing they're going to be using this checklist for, which is especially important in cold weather climate states. And then again, back to this, so Energy Star version 2 is what's currently required. 3 again is required in V4. And one thing to note is Energy Star has evolved. It used to be just an energy program. Now one could argue that it's almost a durability slash healthy homes program, because we're really looking at all sorts of new things here. We're looking at keeping water out of the house, which is really important. Lots of water failures in homes that are energy efficient, which is embarrassing. And then we're looking at having the heating and cooling contractor go through a training and become credentialed to know how to install advanced HVAC systems and make sure they're done right. Sometimes they scoff at this, but believe it or not, we helped train about 50 people through this new program, and we're sitting in classes listening to HVAC contractors asking questions about what a MERV-rated filter is, or what's the purpose of sizing a duct system. So it really sparked a lot of great conversation, and I think it's really pushing the industry to encourage high-performance heating and cooling systems within our tighter buildings. So other EA credits that are going to pop up are R4 pipe wrap, centralized hot water heater, refrigerant charge tests, can get you an extra points. And then in V4, we're going to be seeing the importance of utility submetering on both electric and gas in multifamily buildings. And the importance of that is because we know that if people understand and know what their utility usage is, they can be challenged or encouraged to make personal choices to reduce energy even further. So that will add some cost to do the submetering, but we're working with lots of teams and utilities out there to help offset those costs. Next up, what we say in the industry is build it tight, build it tight, ventilate it right. So once you have that tight building shell down in the energy section, you want to get into the indoor environmental section. And it's not called indoor air quality because we're looking at other issues beyond just air, even though that is the closest or the things that are mostly covered in the section. But this is a 6-point minimum in this program, and we're looking at all sorts of things here. If you use the Energy Star Indoor Air Plus program, it would really knock out most of the things you need to do. But we're looking at some simple things like venting or vented and sealed hot water heaters. All sorts of times we see plumbers, even when it's spec'd, showing up with a naturally drafted hot water heater. So you got to watch out for that. And so that's another time when you're doing a rehab, you got to get any old hot water, old furnace out that's naturally drafted, and you're going to have to replace it with ones that are, venting the carbon monoxide outside. We're looking at moisture control, keeping that down. We're looking at bringing in makeup air. We're really looking at local exhaust, so having the kitchen hood range and the bath fan both venting not into the attic, but actually outside of the house. Venting into the attic causes a lot of issues, so we're going to be looking to see all of the bathrooms have proper ventilation, get some extra credit if you, add on motion sensors or humidistats. This is another place where you could do balancing to ensure rooms are receiving proper airflow for comfort, duct sealing. We're going to be looking at MERV filtration, MERV-rated filters. We're going to be looking at what you might be doing in the house as far as, contaminant control. So encouraging people to take their shoes off when they walk in, to not bring that in, all the way to sealing the ducts during construction or ventilating the house after construction to get the, the VOCs out. Radon mitigation systems, putting a pipe down in the basement and running up to the house is required in a zone 1, I believe, the worst zone. It's extra points in zone 2. I'll be honest, those zone categories, county by county, they're helpful, but radon can shift lot by lot. So we really highly encourage you just to put that radon thing in, $500 maybe at the beginning, just get it done with, and then you know, your clients have peace of mind. You can pick up some extra points by removing the garage from the house and detaching it for health concerns, all sorts of health concerns. Actually, believe it or not, I learned one of these the hard way. I was, you know, visiting somebody, and they had a gas spill in their garage, and lo and behold, it leaked right into the house, and the whole house smelled like gas. So if the garage had been attached or perhaps removed entirely, no garage, you know, big benefits to health, and you can pick up 3 extra points for doing that. Otherwise, you got to do some extra air sealing measures on the garage connection to the house. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in there. So what are the biggest changes in IEQ? So really, the big one is kind of compartmentalization in multifamily housing. So not only are we now looking at air sealing the building shell, but it's really important to start looking at air sealing the individual units from each other. We see it all the time. We hear it all the time. You know, you never know what's going on in the neighbor's unit, what they're cooking, what they're smoking, what they spill. And next thing you know, it's getting pulled into your unit, and you know, it's very uncomfortable, very unhealthy. And so blower door testing of the units is worth points right now on the rating system, but it will be required to get a certain tightness threshold in V4. So you got to watch out for that. Now we're actually looking at certified low VOC paints. In the past, it was just, did the paint say it was low VOC? Now it's got to have a certification with it, which is really key to make sure it's done right. So take a look for those. More and more companies are responding to LEED, and we've already seen some change their entire line after we told them about V4 on a Habitat for Humanity project, and now they're specifying these paints and primers. And there's going to be some extra credit for doing air quality testing and using an industrial hygienist to make sure you're hitting certain thresholds. It won't be required in V4, but I think they're starting to prime the pump for more air quality performance testing. And so if that's something you already do or are interested in, you can pick up some points that way. And I mean, health is huge, and it's hard to quantify financially. You know, what is the value if your kid doesn't get asthma or doesn't suffer from asthma in their new home, and doesn't get lung breathing issues or cancer? How do you place a value on that? I mean, it's easy to value energy efficiency, but having a healthy home, especially in like affordable housing situations or other situations, can help keep costs down, help keep healthcare costs down, and improve comfort and make our communities better. So it's really important. Now, moving on to water conservation. This one's a pretty small section. It requires at least 3 points, and most people pick up their points in the fixtures section. So you're looking at, let's see, on the toilets, you're looking at getting down to 1.2 or lower. We're seeing some really great toilets, single flush even at 0.8, and even lower than that, and they work great. They're very durable, so we know it can be done. So you can get some extra points there depending on the flow rates of the toilet. I think it's 1.28 or 1.1 for the lowest or most points. Getting that shower head and that faucet in the bathroom, not in the kitchen. We don't care about that in this current version of LEED, but just in the bathroom and the kitchen. Getting those down to 2 or lower, really you start picking up some extra points in the rating system, 2 gallons per minute. And then after that, you can go outside and start looking at the water irrigation. There's a lot of recommendations to irrigate with water, high efficiency irrigation, or totally ignoring that entirely and doing, low drought tolerant plants, which we'll cover here in the next section. And then of course, doing rainwater capture, gray water capture is sort of the next level to go. So kind of reverse order that we have this set up here. Obviously gets really expensive, especially gray water, but you can pick up, the rest of your water points doing things like that. In V4, we're going to be looking, at a performance pathway as an option, and WaterSense has developed this really cool water budget tool where you can literally log in and do some design with your landscape architect on how much water you want to use, and it's more of a performance based. And that's going to be, based on some very simple things like what kind of landscape you're doing, what the size of it is, and it's really simple. The current water conservation tool that LEED has set up is pretty complicated. It requires a landscape master architect to use it. This one's a lot simpler. You still want to work with your LA on it, but you take this and then you plug it into a spreadsheet that USGBC has created with all of your different flow rates, and then it out-populates some end water usage and how much it'll use per year. So that way you can give your clients, a water performance number so they can understand how much water is going to cost them and how to reduce it, and you can pick up some points. And another reason people use this is, let's say, for example, they have a certain situation where they just think they need higher flow toilets, something, a certain affordable housing situation or what have you, and they really need to use the 1.6 ones that are, baseline code. Well, that's not allowed in the prescriptive pathway of LEED, but in the performance pathway, you can do the 1.6 toilet in V4, but then you have to offset it in some other way. You could do it with water catchment, with landscaping. So it really allows you to take control of your project and put your water efficiency where you believe it's most important to your team and to your clients. So I'm really excited about this change for V4. Also in water under V4, they're going to be looking at water leakage and pressure. So, having too much pressure in a building could cause extra water leakage, so you'll have to get a pressure regulator if your water is tested to have too much pressure in your LEED project. And so that's another thing you can, contact the local municipality to get them to fix it, because then that can reduce water across the board for a lot of people. All right, so moving on to sustainable sites, which does have a connection to water. There's 5 points required in this category, and this is really looking at the site as a whole and how your project impacts it, all the way from the construction process to how you can stop runoff and degradation of soil, to disturbing the local trees and flora and fauna, all the way to the landscape plan that you have. You can get some prescriptive points for having a certain percentage of turf grass compared to drought-tolerant plants, compared to cement that is what's the term? Gosh, it's escaping me now, but permeable. It's right in front of me. So designing permeable lots, picking up some extra points for that, reducing stormwater issues. Here's where most of your non-toxic pest control measures are going to be listed if you want to use that. And then compact development, multifamily really takes advantage of this. The more units you can do per acre, the more points you can pick up in this section. Again, also some credits for reducing where you put your spot as far as endangered species go, or the 100-year floodplain. That's all going to be looked at in this section. So this is a pretty important section, especially if you're building new. Now in V4, this section's pretty much going to remain the same. There's not much changes. All they did was pick up a prerequisite based on EPA guidelines for reducing air pollution. If you've ever seen construction taking place, you got dust kicking out, it's getting into the neighbor's house, especially in urban areas. So they've got some requirements and recommendations for spraying that dust and preventing that dust pollution during the construction process. So this category is really about connectivity and how many community resources one could get to in a half a mile or mile walk or drive, and how different those community resources are. So it's really important to have unique community resources. So having a grocery store, a restaurant, a bar, a church, a theater, a school, having different community resources all within reach is very important. It encourages walkability. Also, we're looking at sites that have existing infrastructure and are already developed around them, getting more points for that. Already having built-in sewer and gas lines, access to bus transit and bike transit. And then really important is this bottom one, being able to get to open space and be able to get out into nature is really important for people, especially in urban core cities. So, really a lot of times your project, this is kind of just, you get some points or you don't, right? I mean, you don't really get to pick where your project is, but if you do get to pick, and if you also get to, at the city level, make some recommendations on what could be around the area, especially if you're doing LEED and ND certification, you can pick up a ton of points. This is where you can grab some points. There's no, in this version, there are no requirements for location and linkages as far as how many points you need. So those are just some extra things that you might be able to pick up or might be able to consider if you're trying to place a building or consider where your client wants to build. One thing that I wanted everyone to consider here, in location and linkages, you score some extra points for avoiding the 100-year floodplain. In B4, it's mandatory that you avoid the 100 years floodplain unless, and this is, unless you've already got an existing building that's there and you do some very unique durability strategies, or you put the building up on stilts. But overall, they really want you to avoid that 100-year floodplain. But, with the frequency and weather that we're going to be seeing, people are really starting to look at the 500-year floodplain. This is, Boulder in 2013. I think even in North Carolina, or was it South Carolina just recently here? I mean, these have been spilling over their banks into the 500-year floodplain. And so consider that, because, the building could be zero energy for all we care, but if it's flooded, it's not going to do any good to anyone. And another thing that people like to say or think is that urban homes or rural homes can't be LEED certified and they have to be urban. Not only that, or they think that you can't get a platinum rural home, but that's just wrong. I mean, we see all sorts of platinum certified homes that are rural, and these homes, do have to go a little bit above and beyond as far as energy efficiency and what they're doing with their site. And in V4 even, it will be a little more difficult to do a rural home, but it can still be done, and it will just require more points to be picked up in other sections, typically such as energy and atmosphere. So materials and resources is our next category, or the MR section. 2 points are required in this section. Really what we're looking at in this section is detailed framing efficiencies, framing plans, which a lot of that's getting removed in V4. Doing advanced framing like 24-inch on center, so getting more stud space, doing less wood, and being able to get more insulation in between the stud space is also a benefit to your energy and your HERS rating. Reducing framing waste on site is important in this section. This is also the section where it specifies that you must have FSC certified wood if you're using tropical wood, so that's really non-Canadian or non-US wood. That's really important that you do that. SFI, Sustainable Forest Industry or Initiative, I think, is not allowed in LEED right now, but I did hear that they're becoming a lot better. So, maybe check back on that. So, also, this is the section where you have more sustainable materials, so recycled content in your aggregate, in your walls, in your framing, in your drywall. Having your materials come within 500 miles being mined, manufactured, you can pick up some extra points here. And then also having low emitting materials, which is getting moved to the health section in V4. That's also important, and it will spell out which, like your low emission paint or no VOC paint credits are in this section. And then last but not least, you do have to investigate waste reduction opportunities. They just ask that you at least investigate it as a requirement. And then also, if you can divert your waste, you can get more credit here. And a lot of times you can do a single source or double source and put it all in one thing, ship it out, and they'll send you a receipt to say what your percentage of recycled versus diversion is, and you can pick up your points easily that way and hopefully save a little bit of money. Now, this is the section, the materials and resource section, is where you're going to get a ton of points for doing a gut rehab. So again, we hear it all the time. People say, oh, LEED, it requires you to build a brand new home. And there's a lot of benefits to building a brand new home and energy efficiency that sometimes you can't do in a single family or an existing home. But if you are able to reuse an existing home and refurbish and reuse a lot of those same materials, there are tons of points, and there's extra innovation ID credit points for reusing a building in this section. So this is really where you want to look at there. So we got a question here. Green building material certifications and reliability is the question on what makes that reliable, from Gabriel. So thanks for that question, Gabriel. Currently LEED doesn't really look at for its material selection, doesn't really look at the material certifications, but I would argue that there are some really good material certifications out there that are done really well, and they're third-party verified. You've got GreenGuard, which does a great job on air quality emissions testing for its products. Cradle-to-cradle certification, is really in-depth, really expensive, and they're starting to do more building material certifications. That's a really good program that, requires a lot of effort, so it's, still slowly growing even though it's been out for a while. The International Living Future Institute has a pretty neat sort of low-end program called Declare, where the CEO of a corporation is declaring that their materials are PVC-free or non-halogenated flame retardants. And they have to sign that document, and it has to be publicly available. But the Institute's going one step further, and they're looking at even doing a living product challenge, where they're going to require a third-party audit of the materials. So that was a great question, and we're actually going to be doing a session. We'll have a session available on a deeper dive on material certifications. So the question from Irene on tropical woods versus local woods, here's my take on that. Obviously, you're pulling in tropical woods because it's aesthetics, right? But there's no reason to do it otherwise other than that. Local American and Canadian made woods are perfectly fine. They work great. They're very durable. They're very affordable. And there's a better chance that those forests are more sustainably managed than the tropical forests. Now, some programs are going to reward you extra points for doing FSC certification, certified wood, even in the U.S. And even some other certification programs even require FSC, even if it is in the U.S. But yeah, we highly encourage you to look at your local wood options. You can pick up some local points for that, support your local business. This section really is about supporting local businesses as well. And I'll get into that in a second. So here, LEED does not certify products. You get that a lot. This product's LEED certified. It certifies homes, it accredits people, and products have green attributes or alternatives. So no VOC, recycled content, locally sourced, GreenGuard, cradle to cradle, Green Label Plus for your carpeting. But LEED is not product certification. I think manufacturers are picking up on this, and they'll say this product could be worth this many points in this circumstance, but they're getting away from the whole. If a manufacturer says their product is LEED certified, I would steer clear. So what are the big changes? This is a big one. I'll be honest with you, most of any of the drama you've ever heard about going on in the LEED world is really around the materials and resources section, and it's mostly in the commercial world and the chemical industry pushing back against some of the requirements. But for homes, we're really dropping it down from a 500-mile radius points to a 100-mile radius for all of your materials. So that's for extra points. So mine manufactured within 100 miles, trying to keep that money in the local economy and encourage more local manufacturing for some extra points. No longer are they doing rapidly renewable material. They're looking now at bio-based materials certified by Sustainable Farms, trying to avoid pulling out cork from China. And then this is the big one, focusing on life cycle assessment. So where does that material come from? What's it made out of? Who is it hurting along, or who is it helping along its extraction to, and where is it going at the end of its life? And how is it impacting people and the environment along the way? So LCAs are becoming more important, especially in the commercial rating system. So this awareness and education, this is a really small portion, last thing you got to think about, but really important. You know, when you buy a new car, you get a manual of how to operate it. Same with a LEED home. You need to have a homeowner manual in USJBC, and we have some templates on how to design one. You have to have a building manager manual and an occupant tenant manual on how to operate that home so that it remains energy efficient and healthy and durable for them to live in. And there's very creative ways you can do that. We know some people who have made online videos with their phone just kind of walking the homeowner through the house. It's really cool. It's all in French because it was in Canada, but you know, we see that more and more. You can be really creative with the manual. The other thing we're looking at is giving the homeowner a tour of the home, which seems intuitive, but you have to focus on some of the green features. We're looking at doing public awareness events like having open houses, publishing a newspaper article, listing LEED on your website. You can pick up an extra point there. And that's basically what this section is about. And to be quite honest, this section is being removed in the V4 rating system, and most of the items are being placed somewhere else. So the education and tenant manual and all that's being placed in the energy section. So they're not getting rid of it. They're just not going to give you points anymore for putting a sign out. But if you're doing 2008, we do have some signs available, and you can pick up an extra credit for that, or USGBC has some graphics so you can print your own signs and hang them in front of your project. So how does LEED work? So if you're familiar with new construction, you've got GBCI, you've got USGBC, you've got the design team, the commissioning agent, and maybe the LEED AP, and then you've got LEED Online where you're submitting everything. The homes world is a little bit different. The provider and the green rater really are acting as GBCI and LEED Online. And in fact, we're actually real people. There is no LEED Online for LEED for Homes. And the green rater to some degree is acting as a commissioning agent, though he or she must be, or they must be third party. And so they're working directly with the project team and maybe the LEED AP Homes, who's submitting their documentation and verifying it, and then that's getting submitted back to USGBC. So it's a little bit different. They're planning on a LEED Online model for V4, but there'll still be a hands-on provider. So you can go online, go to the USGBC directory, organizations, homes provider, and you can find a provider in your area who might be serving your community, and you can sort through them or talk to them about what their process is for LEED for Homes. I think there's roughly 40 of them, so check them out. You can also contact you can go to the Green Rater directory and contact a local Green Rater. Here's some more information, and you can find that individual who actually has to physically verify and inspect your project, and you can find one that's local to you and reach out to them. But what the Green Rater is responsible for is doing in-field verification inspection, pre-drywall, during construction, doing the final walkthrough, doing a landscape verification. Typically, they're the ones who are responsible submitting all of the paperwork to the provider, so they're able to sign off on all of that stuff in the field. There's somebody definitely you want to contact early and often, have them involved in the preliminary design rating, in the design charrette. It's required to have them for half of a design charrette to get your point. They may or may not be a Energy Star rater as well, and they may have to sub that out, or you may sub that out, or you may find it important to work with a green rater who also is an energy rater. So those could be two different applications, but at the end of the day, it's the green rater's role to make sure everything is done on the building and everything has been signed, and they submit that to us, the provider, who audits a percentage of their work to make sure that that's done right in the field. And then we also have the responsibility of keeping them up to date and educating them wherever they are. So we also have a list of green raters on our website that we highly recommend depending on what area you're working in. So you can go to greenhomeinstitute.org, Green Rater directory, and at some point we're going to be updating their experience on how many projects they've certified. So if you've got a few to choose from, you can know, which ones have done more projects, if that's important to you. And yes, the slides will be available as a handout to anyone listening live or on demand. I'll send that over here shortly. So again, here are the project phases: early planning, get your provider on board, figure out if LEED makes sense, register your project, do your preliminary rating during design, do the pre-drywall verification with the rater, then the final energy testing, blower door testing, landscape testing. At that point, it goes through certification through the provider and the USGBC. This is a great time after that to reflect on what you accomplished and then get started on your next project there. So what are some of the biggest differences on why you would pick LEED for homes or LEED mid-rise versus LEED new construction? There are a couple of reasons for that. The first one may be that you're encouraged by the health. So multifamily relies on ASHRAE 62.2, and so that has a huge impact on human health as well as some of these other areas. And it's something that the current NC rating system is not using, that ASHRAE tool. And so there is more of a focus on occupant health in the NC. The other big benefit is there's a massive reduction in documentation requirements in the residential rating system versus the new construction rating system. So all we're looking at is a final checklist, 2 to 3 accountability forms, and your durability management plan, and that is all zipped up into one file. That will have sign-offs on it versus doing lots and lots of documentation. And the reason for that is because all of the visual verification is being done by a green rater on site, and that person, is a third-party entity outside of your team. So they're able to review all of that stuff and really eliminate a lot of your overhead documentation in the homes section. Many providers use some kind of online rating system or online documentation system at this point. So we have box.com where if you register a project with us, we'll set that up and it will be really nicely organized. So you can start uploading files and documentation and inviting your team here. And you can use it as much or as little as you want. At the end of the day, we just require the green raters to use this folder. But you're free and welcome to use it as well when you register a project, and you can keep all of your files organized down there, and then that way if anybody gets audited, it's all right there. So this is the system we use for now until USGBC launches a LEED online, and other providers may use this or something very similar to that. Real quick, in 2008, I believe colleges could do dormitories under the new construction rating system, but we're finding a lot of schools are able to use LEED for homes, and in V4, I think it'll be more required that you have to use the homes rating system. We'll have to see about that, but if you're doing a college dorm, this is a great time to rethink your LEED strategy. A lot of colleges are now committing to LEED, and see if the homes program makes more sense or is a capacity you want to build in-house there. So again, what is the right option? At the end of the day, we get really excited no matter if you use LEED, commercial or homes, just use LEED. Commit to better building. You've got cost. There's some different inherent costs. How much certification time you want to wait, documentation requirements, and then how familiar is your team with the rating system. Those can be big challenges to picking one or another. So what are those costs? And we're going to cover those here real quick. We've still got a little more time on our end, so thanks for sticking around. The first thing you need to know is that a majority of the LEED premium costs are not going into your certification, which some people claim, but it's mostly going into the upfront construction costs of building above code. And then you get a small amount going into that third-party rater who's going to be doing design, inspection, and testing, and making sure things are done right. We see it all the time. Insulation detailing, air sealing detailing, ducts are installed wrong, the wrong system was installed, and that's all going to relate to energy failures. So this rater is really making sure a quality assurance is taking place when, sometimes that gets missed by the project team, not because they're, bad people, but just because they're very busy, they've got lots of different subs. And then you've got your provider fee and then a really, really small USGBC fee. Other costs might be design assistance if you're new to green building, design reviews, doing extra training, grading your credential. Have you done green before? Do you have experience with LEED, and how complex your project is? Could all add to that. Overall, we see about $2,500 depending on your market for the average single-family home, and of course that goes way down per unit for tract homes or large multifamily developments. Also, you can ask your rater to do sampling where they only inspect 1 out of 5, 1 out of 7, or 1 out of 10 units. Make sure to ask them about that, and you can get approved for sampling. And as long as you have no failures, you can really cut their costs down. And then, of course, what is your experience in LEED and what is your relationship with an energy rater or inspector can all determine your costs. So how does LEED compare? Real brief here, the Enterprise Green Communities Program is a now national program designed by what used to be called the Enterprise Foundation. It's focused on affordable housing. It's, I will say, completely free to use and certify, unlike LEED. But one of the differences is it has a lot of prerequisites to it. And it's very similar to LEED, but it has several prerequisites. We're going to be doing a more intense training on how you can compare the two and even convert one project to another, which it might be more beneficial to use LEED right now in its 2008 version compared to the new 2015 green communities, such as avoiding Energy Star version 3, which is required in green communities, as well as gas or electric submetering of units. But it is a free program. Check it out. It has some really great recommendations. And again, it's designed for the affordable housing industry. The Home Innovations Lab, which is a subsidiary to some degree of the National Association of Home Builders, is a rapidly expanding residential green building rating system with over, I think, 60,000 single-family and multifamily units certified across the U.S. It's being built in as a portion of what they call the International Green Code that has a very good connection to green codes that are expanding. And it's a pretty unique program. It's based off, its energy usage requirements is based off the International Code Council, so it does not require a HERS index or Energy Star to certify, though you can use that as well. It also has a lot more credit options than LEED does and a lot less prerequisites. So you can check that out over at the Home Innovations Lab. And Passive House, everyone asked me about this. We'll just say this, that Passive House in the past used to just purely focus on energy only, but now they have expanded to also require indoor air quality and durability. So they're almost becoming their own green building rating system. You can use the Passive House tool to max out all of your LEED projects, and we see it all the time, so the programs really, in my opinion, are more complementary than competitive, but definitely a program that's highly focused on mostly 90% energy reduction over code. It has some very unique energy modeling tools that even look at hydraulical flow rates. All right, so we have a whole session that we put together, and we're actually going to be improving it and making another version called Green Home Certifications and Labels 101, where we're going to compare and contrast all of these different rating systems, all the way from their cost to their political affiliations to their requirements. So you can check that out now on the USGBC channel or on our website. We have a version of that, and you can pick up some CEUs for that. Really, we want to encourage you to really take the next step in your LEED for Homes journey, and you can check out the Implementing LEED for Homes on your next project session. It's 4 2-hour on-demand webinars that you can either check out again on the USGBC channel, or you can go sign up for it at Green Home Institute on our website under the Learn page, under the On-Demand. And this will really guide you through. It's my partner, Jason LaFleur, also helps me go through some of these, and this will really guide you through the rating system. If you want to get right into V4, we do have an on-demand V4 rating system that you can take a look at as well. This is primarily focused on 2008. So with that, I do want to thank you for your time and encourage you to drop some more questions in here. I know we're a little bit over on our end, but I have some more time to stick around to answer all of your questions. And quickly, I wanted to point out we do have a resource. For those of you listening live, I'm going to drop a link on our website where you can access all of the checklists and files and everything you may ever need for the rating system. And so you can pick that up there on our box.com file share. I also highly encourage you to go to the USGBC credit library, where all of the LEED credits for any rating system all are broken down on here, and there's even, you can comment on them, ask questions, dialogue, you can rate them. Kind of makes all of the credits interactive, so that's pretty cool too. If you can check that out on the USGBC website. So is there any other questions for those of you listening live? Thanks for sticking around. You should be getting an email with a survey to take. I highly encourage you to take that. You will need it for your CEUs. For those of you listening on demand, to pick up your continuing ed, you will need to take the 10-question quiz with a 70% pass rate. And don't worry if you fail, you can take it again. All right, well, I don't see any specific questions, so you can check us out at greenhomeinstitute.org. 888-LEAD-APH is our number. Thank you for all of your time.